Hello, folks. I'm back, and this is part two. So we were reading through these, trying to understand what are these steps about, and let's look at the environment at a glance. So we noticed different stuff. So there is a S3 bucket. So common S3 bucket initial dataset. So what do they say here? Lab environment at a glance. To simplify the getting started experience with the labs, we have created foundational templates for AWS CloudFormation. So that provision the resources needed for the lab environment. So these templates are designed to deploy a consistent networking infrastructure and client-side experience of software packages and components used in the lab. Right. So there is a common S3 bucket for the initial data set. There is secrets manager, database credentials. There is Lambda function. I don't know why this is grayed out though. Lambda function custom resource. I think I don't know what this is. SSM command document. Is this the load documentation? Load test documentation? I'm not sure. And internet gateway, S3 endpoint, virtual private cloud, VPC. So and then public subnet. Availability zone 1, availability zone 2, and availability zone 3. There is EC2 instance workstation, bastion host, security group, NAT gateway, and then there is a database access security group, and there is auto scaling policy for readers. So this is the reader, this is the writer, I think. So master, replica, or the main and the replica. So DB cluster. This is the DB cluster, and this is the database subnet group, virtual private cloud, AWS region. So the environment deployed using CloudFormation includes several components. So the VPC network configuration with public and private subnets. So database subnet group and relevant security groups. So for the cluster and the workstation. So Amazon EC2 instance pre-configured with the software components needed for the lab. Okay, so it looks like it has the software components we need for the lab. The EC2 instance has it all. So IAM roles with access permissions for the workstation and cluster permissions for enhanced monitoring, S3 access and logging. So custom cluster and database instance, parameter groups. So I don't know what that means. Instance parameter configuration and parameter groups for the Amazon Aurora cluster, enabling logging and performance schema. Optionally, Amazon Aurora DB cluster with 2 nodes, a writer and a read replica. So if the cluster is created for you, the database credentials will be generated automatically and stored in an AWS secrets manager. Secret. Optionally, read replica, auto scaling configuration. Optionally, AWS systems manager command document to execute a load test. Cool. So additional software needed. You don't need or do not need any special software on the computer you're using for these labs except an up-to-date browser. So you just need your web browser. So the templates and scripts setting up the lab environment, install the following software in the lab environment. So these templates and scripts setting up the lab environment, install the following software in the lab environment for the purposes of deploying and running the labs. So there is a MySQL client package. MySQL open source software is provided under the GPL license. So there is this sysbench thing. So MySQL client, you can actually see it goes to the mysql.com website, the documentation client programs. So there are these dump, import, show, slap, and then admin, and then MySQL client itself, command line client. The sysbench, which is a scriptable database and system performance benchmark. So it's a database and system performance. So it looks like not just for database, system performance. Okay. So cool. So you have a lot of stuff. And test DB available using the Creative Commons attribute like 3.0 unsupported license. So this is a test database, I think. A sample MySQL database with an integrated test suite used to test your application and database servers. So this repository from Launchpad. Looks like it was there on Launchpad before. which is also a version control system, I guess, like a source code management system. Cool. So, oh, this is Canonical's thing. Okay. Cool. And so there is the weather data. So this is query.data world. So this one I've already downloaded. Query.data.world slash. So I don't know where this. I think query.data.world. Okay, interesting. What is data.world? Turn data chaos into clarity. Save. Cool. So I think it's some website around data. ServiceNow plus Data World product. It's a product. It's a company, I think. So it's a product. They have products, solutions, and all. And they have some weather data, I guess. So I think they picked up the weather data from there. So available using the Creative Commons attribution, share alike, 4.0 international, and then Percona system TPCC. I think TPCC is a benchmark thing. So TPCC, yeah, nowhere it says what is TPCC. So let me just type it out. It's not this benchmark. So TPC-C, so the transaction processing performance. So I think this is for OLTP software for online transaction processing. Yeah, OLAP is online analytical processing. So this is online transaction processing. So transaction processing performance council. So defines processing and database benchmarks and delivered. Okay, so is short for transaction processing performance council. Benchmark C is a benchmark used to compare the performance of online transaction processing processing systems. So it's called transaction processing performance. Weird. Is this transaction processing T and then P performance, or I don't know. Council benchmark C. So the industry standard was published in 1999. Eventually replaced the earlier. Okay, so there was this A, and then I guess there is also E, TPCE. So transaction processing performance council benchmark E. So it's like this versioning, I guess. So A, B, C, D. Yeah. So known simply as a company and in a minimal test. So yeah, you can read through this. It's a lot of stuff, but I've heard of this before actually, and I think this is the official website. Yeah, who are we history. I think this should help. So yep. And let's go ahead and look at the other stuff. So there is Percona toolkit. So this is collection of advanced command line tools used by Percona support staff to perform a variety of MySQL, MongoDB, and system tasks that are too difficult or complex to perform manually. Cool. So it's a list of tools. So there are a lot of tools. Visual Explain, Variable Advisor, Upgrade, great. So I think PT stands for Percona toolkit. So that is that. And then there is Apache Superset. So it's an open source modern data exploration and visualization platform, right? So yeah, that is that. And this is for the provisioned DB clusters labs. Next would be security, and there are more things. So security, managing database credentials with AWS Secrets Manager, IAM authentication to access the DB cluster. So set up database activity streams. So securely managing Amazon Aurora database credentials. So managing credentials securely is not an easy thing, and rotating and stuff. So, and when you rotate, you have to give it to all the clients. So yeah. So securely managing Amazon Aurora database credentials using AWS Secrets Manager. Working with IAM credentials. IAM is short for identity and access management. And then here DAS is short for database activity streams. So monitor your database activity using database activity streams. So there's a global database, meaning multiple regions, multiple availability zones. So create a global database which will span across multiple regions. Connect an application, connect a business intelligence application to the global database. So BI, business intelligence. Monitor a global database, create an Amazon CloudWatch dashboard to monitor the latency, replicated input output, and the cross region replication data transfer of the global database. Use write forwarding. So use a simple application to understand and experience the different consistency modes available with the global database write forwarding feature. So I think the writes are forwarded from the readers to the writer. So plan failover and failback. Simulate a planned failover of the global database and fail back. So do a failover and then fail it back, like undo it, I guess. So recover from an unplanned primary DB cluster failure. So simulate a regional failure. Simulate a regional failure and disaster recovery. DR is disaster recovery scenario, and promote the secondary region in a global database. So primary region, you create a failure, right, and promote the secondary region. And then there is machine learning. So I think here is where they use SageMaker. So overview and prerequisites: set up a sample schema and data for machine learning integration. So use comprehend with Aurora, integrate Aurora with the comprehend sentiment analysis API and make sentiment analysis inferences via SQL commands. So you do sentiment analysis. This is a popular thing that people do in machine learning. I mean, they used to, as in take a tweet or take a set of lines and then understand the sentiment in it, the emotions in it. Is it a negative emotion, positive emotion, sad, angry, joy, happy, and all that, disgusted and whatnot? So use SageMaker with Aurora. So integrate Aurora with SageMaker endpoints to infer customer churn in a data set using SQL commands, and clean up lab resources, clean up after the labs and remove unneeded AWS resources. So and then serverless V1, create an Aurora serverless V1 database cluster. So there is serverless stuff also. So use Aurora serverless with AWS Lambda functions. So it's like together, how do you work? Create a new Amazon Aurora serverless MySQL DB cluster manually. Connect to your DB cluster using relational database system, data API, and Lambda functions. V2, so create a new Amazon Aurora serverless V2 MySQL DB cluster manually. Gather information, run workload, and observe scaling. So connect to the DB cluster to simulate workload and observes automatic scaling. And then finally, upgrading Amazon Aurora. So major version upgrades using blue-green deployment. Upgrade an Aurora MySQL cluster major version using blue-green deployment. Minor version upgrade should be easier. So in-place upgrade method. Upgrade an Aurora MySQL cluster minor version using in-place upgrade. So yeah, so that is that. Let's go ahead and actually click next. Just a moment. Okay, so once you click this, before you can use the resources in the lab environment, you need to complete a few steps. This section will walk you through those steps. Okay. So you basically have to look at, so of course this you would have already started. If you're attending a formal event such as a workshop or other training, your instructor will provide specific guidance on how to start. So I've already gotten that guidance. So typically you will be provided an AWS account, and the lab environment has already been deployed in that account for you. Choose the I am in a workshop using a pre-provisioned environment, so already pre-selected. So this is the one. So you just have to log in. If you're trying these labs out yourself in your own account, or you're attending a formal event and your instructor has specifically instructed you to deploy the lab environment manually, choose the I need to deploy a lab environment manually tab below. Please select the option that matches your circumstances best. So I'm in this case, I already showed you. Just a moment. Yeah, so at the beginning of the workshop, you will be provided, right, with a this will be provided because this is like the authentication and authorization for the workshop. You'll be provided with the 12 character access code so that no random person can just go ahead and perform a denial of service attack or whatever. This or misuses the environment. So this access code grants you permission to use a dedicated AWS account for the purposes of this workshop. Um, you just click this and sign in using a preferred method. After signing in, enter. So you can sign in using anything, even your personal email ID or professional work email ID, company email ID. Provide the password. After signing in, enter the event access code and click next. So I had this. So I review the terms and conditions and select the check mark to accept, and then click join event and click open AWS console on the left. So this is what I showed you, um, to log into the AWS management console. That's all, right? So once you log on to the AWS console, you can proceed to the labs, connect to the VS Code ID environment. So if it's you deploying the environment manually, I think you can access the console or through single sign-on mechanism provided. So you go into the console and then I think deploy the environment using AWS CloudFormation to simplify the getting started experience with the labs. We have created foundational templates for AWS CloudFormation. So I think this is the template, right? It's called this. Stack name is Aurora Lab. Template URL is this. So there is a YAML file that they provide. So I think you can save this and open it up and see. So yeah, so there's a YAML file. I'll post the link to this. So this will help you with setting up the environment. So that provision the resources. So we have created foundational templates for AWS CloudFormation that provision the resources needed for the lab environment. These templates are designed to deploy a consistent networking infrastructure and client-side experience of software packages and components used in the lab. So please choose the most appropriate CloudFormation template based on the labs you want to run and click launch stack. So we have only one lab provision, the Aurora DB cluster for me. Use when you wish to have the Aurora DB cluster provision for you. Follow this section CloudFormation stack setup instructions below for further instructions. So yeah, I think the instructions is below. Just a moment. What is this? So federated login. Okay, so looks like during the follow steps in the workshop. Yeah, I mean, using your own or a workshop studio provided AWS account. I think I got workshop studio AWS thing. You may be provisioned with a pre-provisioned AWS account for use during the event. The IAM role that we have provided has limited permissions which will restrict you to the services and API calls required for the event. These accounts are temporary and access will be revoked after the session. At which time all resources will be deleted. Ways to access your workshop studio provider account. There are a couple of ways to access the provided AWS account. Federated login link. A one-click login to the AWS console. Use the Open AWS console link under the main site navigation AWS account access section. CLI shell environment variables needed to make. So this is basically the AWS access key ID and AWS secret access key. So environment variables needed to make API calls using the AWS CLI. Get the AWS credentials link under the menu, and so EC2 SSH key. So SSH key pair required to access the access in Amazon EC2 instance provided for the event. So get the EC2 under the main side account access. So there is no EC2 stuff over here though for me. So yeah. So event information. Yep. So let's look at this region check. Ensure you're still working in the correct region, especially if you're following the links above to open the Service Console at the right screen. Also note the region should not be US East. in Virginia or US East 1 if you're planning to run the Aurora Global Database Labs. Okay, so this is I think US West 2, so it shouldn't be US East 1 apparently. Okay. So in the field named stack name, ensure the value Aurora lab is preset. If you're planning to run the Aurora Global Database Labs, please also select yes for the enable Aurora Global Database Labs parameter lab features section. So if you're planning to run the Aurora Machine Learning Integration Labs, please also select the yes for enable Aurora ML Labs. So create cluster automatically, so enable yes. Instead of creating it manually, if you selected lower, select a region you plan to use as the secondary region. This region must be different from the current region you are launching the stack in. So scroll to the bottom of the page, click on next. I acknowledge that CloudFormation might create IAM resources with custom names and then click create stack. So you see this create in progress, creation complete, create complete. The stack will approximately take 20 minutes to provision. You can monitor the status on the stack detail page. You can monitor the progress of the stack creation process by refreshing the events tab. Okay, so you can just refresh this. The latest event in the list will indicate create complete for the stack resource. Cool, so we are good here. So now once the status of the stack is create complete, click on the outputs tab. The values here will be critical to the completion of the remainder of the lab. Please take a moment to save these values somewhere. You will have easy access to them during the remainder of the lab. The names that appear in the key column are referenced directly in the instructions in subsequent steps using the parameter format output key. Okay, so outputs and the key and the value. Okay. So let's make sure your workstation has been configured properly. Do you see a URL similar to some cloudfront.net slash the values name for the VS Code URL? Yes, I think VS Code URL they didn't show here. So if so, you may proceed to the next lab. Connect to the VS Code ID. Otherwise, please revisit the okay. So next, connect to the VS Code ID. So this one I've done. I opened this and yeah. So interact with the Aurora database cluster. You will use an VS Code cloud-based integrated development environment. So ID. So it has like terminal and everything integrated together. So editor and everything. So we'll refer to it as your VS Code ID going forward. All necessary software packages and scripts have been installed and configured in this environment. Why can't I use my own laptop? We aim to provide a consistent experience to each lab participant. In the past, we have noticed that permissions and configuration differences on each participant devices have resulted in inconsistent and suboptimal participant experiences. Some participants were unable to install required tools, others needed to significantly deviate from the instructional steps, resulting in less than optimal learning outcomes. So this lab contains the following tasks. Open and set up your VS Code, verify lab environment. This lab requires the following. So get started, we have done it. So open and set up your VS Code. So open the CloudFormation console, click on this tab and then VS Code URL. In the output section, you will find several parameters and their values. Locate the parameter called VS Code URL and VS Code password. And okay, and use the web link by either clicking on it or copying the URL into a new tab in the web browser. Use the value of VS Code password to log in. Choose a theme, then click on mark done. Close the welcome tab by clicking, then resize the terminal window to your liking and click on explore to get the file explorer view. And for some labs, you may be required to run some commands simultaneously in two split terminals. In order to split terminals, click the three horizontal lines on the left panel, choose terminal and then choose split terminal. You can alternatively also click the split icon from the layout tab on the right side panel. Okay, so I'm guessing this one. Toggle second sidebar. I think no, not this. Not this. I think I can do this. No, that just opened up one more. Okay, I think I can just, yeah, this one I had already created before. Okay, so terminal. Okay, I have one terminal. Just do split terminals. Command this. Oops, it just did it here. So I'll just do it here. Cool, split terminal. You can also just click here and say terminal, split terminal, and it'll split. So I'm just gonna cancel these. I can also do Control D over here and it'll exit. So yep, I can do this, or yeah, just this. So resize. So I'll resize it pretty big, and you can alternatively this one. You've done it. So now next. So you need to copy this and check it out. Finally verify that VS Code desktop has been configured properly. Type the following command in the terminal window. So we're looking at this thing called bootstrap log, and we are getting the last line alone to see if bootstrap has been complete. You can actually, I think, check out the whole bootstrap. So I think it's not that much of a big file. So running as root, adding user participant, checking configuration user added, setting up environment, and installing AWS CLI, support packages, MySQL client, Percona tools and client libraries, sysbench, and then sysbench tpcc, sample data repo, download lab assets, AWS CLI is configured, environment variables initialized, DB credentials initialized, updated file ownership, installing VS Code server, Nginx installed, and it's running. And yep, bootstrap is complete. So I think we're good to go. So yep, we can see signal bootstrap complete. You should see the output timestamp signal bootstrap complete. Once you have verified the environment is configured correctly, you can proceed to the next lab. Cool. So provisioned DB cluster labs. So I will do this in the next part. I'll start from here and I'll do these, and then security and global databases, machine learning, serverless, and upgrading, and then some Redshift stuff. So that's all I had for this video. I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.